Hey everybody. So this is kind of at a funny angle, so I might have to move this around because you're only getting half of me, and got to get the whole package, don't you? Um, so, I was going to do my YouTube thing today, but I'm not ready. I really want to try and get some. Well, I want to clarify with myself really to determine if I want to set up a separate channel or just do it under my regular channel, and also just want to see if I can line up. So I planned exactly who I'm going to read from, and so people are surprised, not surprised, and can expect it coming. So sometime within the next week, I will do another live YouTube reading, which I actually do live and then I upload. I'm still trying. Hey Liz, hey, look at the wall, by the way. That's why I want to make sure you saw that. Anyways, I'm glad you like it. That said, I'm gonna try and figure out how to upload these live reads from Facebook onto YouTube. I just don't know if it's possible, but if I can, I will do it. I'm just not sure yet. Anyways, my son Andrew comes home in about 40 minutes, so I kind of want to get this done before that. And anyways, one book I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent rant here. I'll make it brief. One of my favorite books, and I think, my opinion, one of the best ones I've written because I put so much into it. And Liz, as an author, would probably appreciate this. Is my book Middle School Madness. So here's the cover. I'll show you a bit of it. I did all the artwork for this, and this is pixel art. I try to make them look like computer game characters. Yeah, I know it kind of is. Let's see. I think it's the lighting. Let's see. Does that help at all? Let me see if that helps. Not much I can do about it, unfortunately. I think it's just the way I set things up with the thing. Is I did all the artwork for this, and now this is not great artwork, but if you look, it's really pixel art that I did to make them all look like computer game characters. And there's over 300 drawings in this book, one on every page, sometimes two, and every page has a little factoid at the bottom, which are sometimes referred to as running feet. And I'll show you an example. And some of these are not facts for educational, some of them are. This is actually just based on a true story. But I drew all these, and some of these, like, you can see Coil Hunter is by Dean L. Wilson. He's a best-selling author in Ireland. And I really can't, and that's another one of his books, Dean L. Wilson. So I give some of my author friends kind of a shout-out. And I'm going to do that right now, I'm considering rewriting it, doing some new artwork. So I started doing some new artwork to rewrite this book. And then, thanks. And then I kind of hit a snag as I started working on more stuff, and I just kind of got burned out. But I really do want to re-release this, and this is where the rant comes in. This book was taken off for me. I mean, it wasn't like getting on the bestseller list on the New York Times or anything, but locally at Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore, this book sold out 3 times, which means I sold like 34 copies. Hey, Jen. And for an independent author locally, that's incredible, if I may say so. I mean, there's best-selling books that weren't selling that fast from there. And I'm going to go just really brief in this. It's kind of a cathartic thing for me. Because this book, I put years into this book. And it was heartbreaking when this happened. In 2018, I came down with pneumonia. Hey, Amy, long time no see, my friend. In 2018, I came down with pneumonia really bad. I was hospitalized for about a week and a half. And when I got out of the hospital, I was still in lots of pain. Because, we all know I have a heart condition. And it was causing me lots of chest pain. And I was miserable. And the worst thing to do when you're miserable is to send an email to someone. Because you generally lose your filter. And my filter doesn't exist in the first place. And so I'm just going to be purely honest here. I like playing computer games. I don't spend a lot of money on them. I don't spend hours playing them, but I got a few games for my iPhone, and a couple of them by this one company called Replay Games stopped working right after I bought them, like a month or two after I bought them. And I emailed them asking for my money back. Because basically what it was is the iPhone updated, they didn't update their software, the games no longer worked, so I was out my money. We're talking about $10, but I emailed them for it. And they hadn't responded, and I sent numerous emails. And so I got to the hospital, saw they hadn't responded, and I got really irate, and sent a nasty email to them that was really unpleasant. It was really inappropriate, but I was pissed, and I sent it to them, and they decided to take it even to another level. They tried to get me fired from my job by contacting HR where I worked at Jenny Craig, And luckily, they just kind of said, hey, just next time be a little bit more discreet with how you conduct yourself. And they let me go. Let that go. I'm still working there, of course. But they also contacted the bookstore that was selling my books and got them to pull it that day. And so I was told the same day, come get my books. They didn't say why, but it's pretty obvious. And I've never confronted them about it. But that said, it killed my book sales. And I just, all of a sudden, my motivation to write just went out the window for about a month. And I stopped promoting this book because I thought I was done. Anyways, I had a few people I sent this to as a gift, and the feedback from them was like, oh my God, you got to write another one. And it really reminded me that I had a lot of fun writing this, even though it was a little bit stressful. So I'm going to try and really get back into this. As soon as I finish writing Victor and Hitmom, this is going to be, and of course Mirror War, which you've seen all the faces I've been drawing for it. I'm going to get back into this. I'm going to slowly but surely make this a project to get it out by 2021, as well as have the sequel ready. Anyways, so that's my word. So just going to say, replay games, don't buy their stuff. Their games suck, first off. So the ones that do work, don't work at all. So hey, Henry, long time no see. How you doing, buddy? Anyways, I'm going to go and get started this right now. And I'm going to find, let's see. I'm going to go a little bit further into it because here's real quick. I'm going to finish my rant, I promise. A lot of the stuff that's in this book happened to me in middle school. And it was a cathartic thing for me because my son wanted me to write a Diary of a Wimpy Kid book. I can't plagiarize someone, of course, so I made my own. But everything in here happened to me or someone I knew. So I rewrote it. Some of it was as a bad memory, but I made it funny. I think this book's hysterical, if I may say so. That's just my opinion. I'm not trying to brag. So I'm going to read one of the things that really did happen to me. And let's see, I'm going to try and get to the thing. 1 second here. Hold on. Trying to get to the one site here. Hold on. Hey, Brian. Okay. Well, here, I passed it. Hold on 1 second here. I should have been more organized. Okay. So, let's go ahead and start with Chapter 8, first period. So, real quick, this is based on a teacher I had named Mr. Hamilton, who was my math teacher, and he was really, really mean to everybody in the class. But because one of my other brothers had him in high school, and he said, I hope you're not as big trouble as your brother was, it seems like he always had it in for me. I'm not saying he did, but this really did happen. So, here we go. And, of course, I changed the names to protect everybody. Chapter 8, first period. And here, real quick, here's, by the way, just a reminder, Asunder by Liz L. Steinworth rules. Did I really write R-E-L-E-S? Oh, my God. That's a typo. Hey, I'm a typo. We want to handwrite. That's supposed to be R-U-L-E-S. Wow, that's embarrassing. So there's Mr. Holmes, and he's loosely based on Mr. Hamilton. And there he's again. I used Drill Sergeant, Gunnery Sergeant Hartman from Full Metal Jacket as a model for this guy because I wanted to look like a jerk. And even though I like Gunnery Sergeant Hartman and the late actor who played him. Okay, so and here's one of the fun facts, real quick, and I'll get back to the planet Pluto is 1/3 water. Okay, and there's an example of the fun facts. Hey, Madeleine, I'll get to your book soon, I promise. If I could have picked the worst possible scenario, Brad Helms being one of my teachers certainly was it. He scowled at me with his yellow eyes. Okay, they weren't yellow, but they had the look of a lion about to bring down an antelope. To use another animal analogy, I fully expected that like a pack of hyenas on a zebra, he kept nipping away at my heels until I was brought down. I looked and did not see that any members of his baseball team were in the class, and only Liam was here in the class with me for my team. Real quick, this is kind of a combination of two teachers. I had a teacher that was also a opposing Little League coach that ended up teaching me in middle school, and he was really mean to like me and the other two people on my Little League team that were in that class. I'm not saying he was trying to be mean. He was mean to everybody, but it seems like as a teenager, I was thinking it was him being mean to me. But anyways, well, at least I had a friend who would not have to face him alone. I hoped that he would be like a regular teacher and not take out his humiliating loss because of my surprisingly good pitching and wicked swing on me. That's a little bit of an embellishment, but I'll explain that later maybe. But would accept that every game has a winner and a loser, and he happened to be a loser yesterday. Somehow by the look in his eyes, hey, Darlene. I noticed when I got closer. I could tell that my hopes were not going to come true. Well, well, we have a couple of baseball heroes here today. Yikes, this did not sound good. I do think we're going to have a fun school year here in first period. Don't you, Hugo? It's the main character. And real quick, Hugo is right here. And if anybody wants to know who my favorite football team is, you can see the Seahawks hat, shirt, watch, and the action green shoes. I didn't zoom in because I didn't want to get... That's supposed to be Seahawks gear. I didn't want to get it, if by any chance Seattle got mad at me, I didn't want them to say, hey, you can't do that. So, anyways, I gulped, yes, sir. I hoped to be defiant, but I admit I was quite terrified of him. I mean, his teeth had 4 sharp canines, and they were yellowed, like a man who had drank tea and chewed tobacco since he was in the womb. I swore for a second he had horns, and I almost looked for a pitchfork. His breath smelled like shoe polish mixed with bad coffee, and his eyes were not yellow, as I said, but were an unhealthy pale green color. A precursor to the zombie apocalypse, maybe? I had to remain calm. Maybe I could ask to be switched to a different science class, and so could Liam? Speaking of Liam, he had waited until Mr. Holmes turned around and made several faces at him. The class snickered, and he rolled his head around, but could not see why the class laughed. Truthfully, though, I bet he had a sixth sense and knew it was either Liam or me. And fun fact at the bottom of the page, parental lecture. Tobacco is not only gross, it is very bad for you in so many ways. Please do not smoke or chew tobacco. Public service announcement for me as an ex-smoker who had a heart attack. And science fact on the next page, by the way. Yeah, oh wait, real quick. There's a reason I'm going to get to that. I thought for a second he had a forked tail, but it was probably just my imagination. Now, in this case, I made him a science teacher, and this is where the science teacher was the Little League one. Mr. Hamilton was the other one, so I'm just kind of combining them. So, class, at least a couple of you know I coach a baseball team, and I believe it is best to get the first pitch out of the way. So we're going to do a little science experiment today just to get you all introduced to... Sorry, this is my voice for a second. To middle school science. He went over to a large stand-up locker and began pulling out plastic bottles of ketchup. I had no idea what experiment this would be, but the look on his face certainly did not bode well, at least not for me. He began handing out the bottles, one to each student, and then yelled, "Do not do anything with them yet!" Yes, you can indeed clean pennies with ketchup, though of course you need to clean up the mess afterwards. That's the fun fact. Anyways, I spent too much time babbling about this, so I'm going to move on to the next one because I don't want to bore you. Basically, you can look. I'm just going to share this real quick. And here's another book plug. The Tree Makers Trilogy by Christina L. Roselle. She's a good friend of mine. And there's a trick where you can actually... I'm trying to remember what it is. If you put... I can't remember what I did with this thing. Yeah, you put baking soda in a ketchup bottle and then shake it when it can actually explode in your face like that. And I had a teacher in junior high. I had a teacher in junior high called Mr. Holmes, and this is Mr. Holmes, who did that. Now, I can't prove it. Maybe he didn't. But, he did that to a couple of students, and then sure enough, he laughed at it the instant it happened. So, and he had gotten, there was a rumor about him. I don't know if it's true. But basically, yeah, he said you got to shake the bottle out to make the ketchup come out. And when I did, it went into my face. Now, in this, Hugo gets mad and yells at him. I just kind of wiped my face off and, had to deal with a few people saying, making fun of me. But it also happened to a couple of friends of mine, that same thing. And, I mean, literally when it shot out, there was like carbonation stuff coming out of it. So it's pretty clear that something had been done. Someone had done something. But anyways, I'm going to digress and move on to the next one. Anyways, that was Middle School Madness. It's right now, to get back on the point real quick, it's available on Kindle. The paperback is not available because I signed with a publisher that kind of screwed me, and I need to republish it on paperback. And before I do that, I'm determining whether or not I want to update all the artwork. So if you're interested, it is available on Kindle. It's a fine read on Kindle too. It reads the same way as a paperback. Check it out. If not, it'll be out on paperback hopefully within the next year. Okay, so next one is going to be Asunder, which, if you can excuse my poor handwriting or spelling, hold on a second. That's not really going to fix it, but you can see that Asunder by L. Steinworth rules. I don't know if that really fixed it, but I'll try to make a better sign next time, because I think next time I'm going to do Fragments of Life by Beth Hodgson. Okay, so first off, let me show you this cover here. And I'm going to do it this way if I can. Look at the cover. I mean, this is incredible artwork. And Liz actually painted this and then wrote the book to explain the painting. And in a way, it's kind of how I do covers now. I start drawing the cover even as I'm writing the book. Sometimes I write it, I draw it before I even write, I draw it even before I write it too. But Liz is an incredible painter, an artist. And you go to her website, theartofliz.com, and you can check out her paintings. I think she does sell it, so check it out. I'm hoping the sequel comes out soon. Hey, Mama Fang. So anyways, let's go ahead and read where I left off here. I'm just going to do a couple of pages because my son's going to get home soon. I have a few others to read. And here we go. She smiled. Anything interesting out there? The guard blinked, unsure if he was being addressed. Manley watched with amusement as he looked to Lydia, as if the old woman cared to see the world around her. Reels. She was too focused on threading through the final laces of a white and decorative corset. Manley eyed the item, remembering the tortuous device would soon be wrapped around her. Then she smiled impishly and flashed her eyes to the guard. You have to help with that later. Lydia's fingers had grown weak, but I'm sure your strong hands can tighten it nicely around me. Layla leaned toward the guard with an inviting gaze. Lydia ended her fuss with the lace and stared in horror. Manley Drake! What? Manley cried innocently. I can't put it on myself. And you complain about your crooked old fingers all the time. Why shouldn't the man help my lady-in-waiting so nobly? Sour wrinkles grew around the woman's tight pursed lips. The glare enhanced the old woman's age, making her appear ancient. Manley batted her eyes to her guard, expecting an alluring smirk or a bite of interest to her invitation. However, he lacked either, and only shifted uncomfortably as he averted his gaze back out the window. Manley sighed and leaned back against the wall to do the same. Oh, there you go. Yeah, there's a website. Kendall, she finally decided, bored her. She wished her previous escort, Charlie Downguard, was accompanying her. Maida was sure that, by now, they would have been deep in conversation about the differences across Matern's landscape. Charlie would go on to explain that, unlike the dry climate of Amos, the leaves in the north changed in color and then fell off because the trees were preparing for the colder months. Hey, Susie. Although she knew already, she would listen. There was always something Charlie could enlighten her about, as he was well-traveled, served in the war, and had explored the desert of Gizmek. When the topic of local knowledge became exhausting, Charlie and she would philosophize over something silly, like what made the best archer, a cat or a rat. Hey, Karen. Manny guessed a cat, but she knew he would, for the sake of challenging her, claim the rat as the victim for reasons she'd failed to consider. Charlie always made a point to help expand her knowledge and discuss anything to keep her mind from wandering down a dark path, a charming trait he developed to help her forget the horrors from 3 years past. An earthly crack boomed, jarring Manny from thought. Her guard no longer possessed his calm demeanor, and was now ready and alert. One hand tied around the hilt of his sword, and the other on the door's handle. Lydia, however, took a calm breath and put her hands in her lap. Just a thunderclap, my lady. Storms are frequent here this time of year. Then horses whinnied, and the carriage began to shake. At first only slightly, but then violently as the rolling thunder grew. Just as Mary turned her head to the window, she saw several boulders charging down the hill. She threw herself away from the window and clung to Lydia. Together, they prepared for impact. And here's a chapter break, but I'm going to go a little bit more. Alden leapt in onto the overturned carriage. As it teetered, he steadied himself into a crouch and pulled at the door. Locked, he called. Kira landed alongside him, taking out a set of small tools. Sorry, I'm not wearing my glasses, so it kind of gives me a little bit of a problem sometimes reading the print. I really should start wearing them. Alden guarded while she picked the lock, but there wasn't much of a fight left. The landslide had gone exactly as Page and Trot had planned, leaving many guards lost under rocks and logs. Those who had survived were facing a much worse fate of battling shadows. Squirrel stayed on the hill, using a boulder as cover as he exchanged arrows with an archer below. Alden feared the contest between bows would end soon with his friend on the losing side, but Ren slipped past a flurry of blades and tumbled to introduce his long rapier into the back of the skilled archer. Ren is a coward. I can't stand this character, but you're supposed to hate him. I'm not saying I can't stand him because I can't stand him because he's a villain and he's a coward. But this is like an arch villain that's really well written. A loud cry echoed off the hills. And open, Kira said. With a flick of her wrist, the carriage's door swung wide. Alden inhaled as the alluring smell of spiced perfume whiffed out. Together, they cautiously peered inside. Pillows, blankets, and the drapery hung over everything like a gypsy den. Cookies littered the floor. A young woman sat rubbing her head. He guessed her to be only a few years younger than himself at the tail end of her teen years, but her thick makeup hid the truth. She had tanned olive skin, which lay mostly behind a white feathered jacket and shimmering orange dress. Wrapped loosely around her black hair was a silk scarf to match the gown. A guard was crouched beside an older woman, checking for a pulse. Before he could catch a read, he threw his head up, noticing them. He stood and attempted to release his sword from his scabbard. However, from within the confines of the small overturned carriage, he knocked his elbow against the side, failing to draw his blade completely out. "Let me help you with that," Kira offered kindly, then dove in. Her boot met the guard's chest and sent him against the arched roof with a grunt. Ow. See, yeah, she says she's the author and she says he's horrible. Sorry, I just need a second. Kira gripped the hilt and twisted it free from his scabbard. In one quick motion, she used the man's own blade to split his neck. Ow! Alden winced as the young woman screamed, watching the murder. But no blood escaped the guard. The man coughed from the blow, then blinked. "Damn Mimosian silk!" I'm sorry, let me do that again. "Damn Mimosian silk," Kira growled. Before the guard could fight back, she knocked him out. At least she didn't kill him. Okay, so that was 3.5 pages. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one. Hey, I got the whole package. Whoa, did someone say whole package? Sorry, I couldn't help it. Sorry, Lynn. Okay, so next one is going to be from my good friend Madeleine Holly-Rosing. And Madeleine Holly-Rosing is a comic book writer as well. And she's got a new comic book that's based on the book I'm going to read from called Boston Metaphysical Society. And it's at your local comic book store, at least I think it's at most of them. She's here in San Diego, and she's a great writer. She's also a world-class epifencer. Trying to remember what else I can tell you about her. She's just an incredible writer, and her book, Boston Metaphysical Society, is probably one of the best steampunk novels I've read, and I've read quite a few of them. So, let me open up my Kindle and see if I can find the cover here. Okay, so, let's see. Let's see if I can get this to populate real quick. Let's see, okay. Remember, I'm on location 16 or 1029. Okay, so I want you guys to see the cover. This is an award-winning cover, and look at that. This is just awesome. Isn't that really cool? Okay, so let's go back to the location. I think I said 1029. Okay, come on. Okay, here we go. Oh, no problem, Liz. I'll do another one soon. Hopefully, like I said, when I do my YouTube one, you're going to be one of the ones I read from. Elizabeth heard the faint sounds of a piano as she walked down a hallway in the Gardner mansion. The noise from the surrounding crowd was muffled, as if she had cotton in her ears, but the music from the piano grew sharper. By the way, Liz, feel free to share the Amazon link to your book too, or any link you want to share. And Madeleine, same thing with Boston Metaphysical Society. Share any links to your comic book or your book here. Anxious as she was missing the performance, Elizabeth picked up her skirt so they wouldn't trip her as she hurried through what was now a throng of tightly packed people. She pushed and shoved her way through, not caring about decorum, trying to get this closer so I can read. When she got to the edge of the crowd, she lurched forward and found herself staring at a blank wall. She reached out to touch it. The wall was warm, soothing even. The heat wound its way up her arm and circled around her neck, soothing her. It touched the base of her skull, probing, then without warning pierced her brain. Elizabeth screamed. She opened her eyes to find herself staring at a dilapidated brick wall. Droplets of water trickled through the mold-ridden cracks. The dank smell of an unventilated room assaulted her nose. An oil bed spring dug into her shoulder, and whoever's body she inhabited turned over. Rage and disappointment overwhelmed her. She was having another vision. Whoops! Why am I trying to use my computer to change my tablet? I'm reading this off my iPad, and I was using my laptop to try and turn the page. I'm a brilliant man, and my spelling is amazing. The nature of her gift allowed her to inhabit the body of someone in the near or far future. How far, she was never certain. However, by the style of the clothing and the condition of the building, Elizabeth guessed she was somewhere on the south side. Her vigils never took her outside of Boston. It had not occurred to her before that proximity might be an important factor, but perhaps she should consider that. Elizabeth wished she had the ability to control the bodies she visited. Helpless, all she could do was wait and attempt to figure out why her psyche was drawn not only to this person, but to this time and place. Where in time, she wasn't sure, but her gut told her it was in the near future. Her host's eyes were open, so she could confirm the hands that she stared at belonged to a girl, perhaps a teenager, calloused and scarred from some sort of menial labor. The newer cuts were healing. The girl gazed across the room, which allowed Elizabeth to see she was not alone. A number of cots were set up, and people wearing the same type of russet brown colored clothing were sleeping or muttering to themselves. Some curled up in a ball, rocking. Elizabeth first presumed she was inside an insane asylum, but there were no orderlies or guards, nor were there bars on any of the 4 windows or the solid-looking door. She had never been inside such an institution, but knew they kept the inmates locked up and supervised. Here, no one seemed too interested in doing much of anything. Footsteps caught the girl's attention. They came from beyond the door. Anxious, she sat up. Elizabeth felt her heart race and skin perspire. The girl was afraid. Elizabeth hoped whoever was coming might provide her with some answers, but instead something strange happened. The footsteps stopped in front of the door, and an orange-reddish glow began to emanate around the door frame. It was as if a single sun rose behind it. The girl's heart beat faster as she raised her fist and beat herself on the head. "Get out! Get out!" the girl screamed. She dug into her scalp, trying to tear out her hair. Did the girl sense Elizabeth's presence, or was it something else? Elizabeth winced inwardly at every stroke as if she was assaulting herself. She cried out to the girl, "Stop it! Stop hurting yourself!" even though she knew the girl could not hear her. She tried to force herself to wake up so the girl would stop torturing herself, but it was no use. Something was holding her back. It felt like another presence. But how could that be? Through the girl's tears, Elizabeth noticed the door opening. The glare of the light blinded her as a blast of heat washed over her body. A tear streamed down her face. It was so intense, but she forced herself to try to see what lay beyond the door. The outline of a person formed in its aurora. The features were fuzzy and indistinct. She was trying to make out who or what it was when someone or something tugged at her. "Let me go!" Elizabeth shrieked. "Elizabeth!" Samuel yelled. "Wake up!" She opened her eyes to see her husband sitting on top of her and holding her arms down. Ooh, just kidding. Samuel? Samuel? The fear and worry on his face told her what had happened. Not only were her visions back, but they were obviously stronger and even more visceral than before. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one. Again, this is, remember 1072. This is Boston Metaphysical Society. I'm going to show you the cover one more time. If I can get it to open here. I mean, this is really one of the best covers of a book I've ever seen. And it's called Boston Metaphysical Society, A Storm of Secrets. I hope another one comes out soon. She was nice enough to give me a Kindle copy of this to read. Okay, so this is one I have not read before. It's by J.R. O'Brien, a Facebook friend of mine. And so I'm going to pull this up on my Kindle on my laptop. She sent me a copy of it to read. I've never read this before, so we're going to enjoy this together. I don't know if she has a cover attached to the Kindle. I hope so. If not, hopefully she can send a link so you guys can check it out. This is called Crypt Sellers, as in like the seller of a house, not someone selling something. And let's see if I can... here's the cover. It's a pretty cool wine glass. Let's show you what it's got here. Looks like it's full of blood. Yummy. And probably is, because this is vampire. Okay. And let's get this going here. Chapter 1. March. The ending of winter and the edge of spring all mixed into one. Small flowers were beginning to bud here and there. Just a tiniest bit of color to spot along all that deadwood of the cold season. And yet, you could still taste the frigid tinge of snow in the air if you breathed deep enough. You knew that even with spring right around the corner, winter still had a grip on the world. Today, however, the sun had been out, barely a cloud in the sky, and the temperature was almost bearable. It had been a good day to be out and about if you like that sort of thing. Admittedly, being a vampire kind of put a damper on the whole enjoying a beautiful day thing. We didn't do well in sunlight, but thanks to the invention of UV-proof glass, we could at least move about during daylight hours with a little more freedom than we used to. Don't get me wrong, though, being undead held plenty of perks. I had been around a while. I had watched the world change as history slowly unraveled and told new stories over the centuries. And now that the world had matured enough to accept not only shapeshifters, but vampire kind as well, let's just say life was going good. In these modern times, the supernatural community and its inhabitants were thriving, growing and becoming more and more mainstream. Hey, Ed. My staff and part of my security team had arrived before me to secure our rooms and get everything in place before the rest of us landed just after sunset. Now we're headed to the hotel to meet everyone and get ready for our first night in Columbus. Rob Zombie's Living Dead Girl came screaming from my pocket as my phone rang. Good choice. I should mention that I am utterly not tech savvy. It took me 3 months to figure out how to answer my own phone when Gabriel, my primary partner and lover, decided to get it updated for me. Some of my vampires and personal servants had a great amount of fun setting my ringtones. The caller ID showed the name and number for the hotel we were staying at. You've reached Christiana Aramis, I answered in my most professional voice. Mistress. The sound of Michael's voice made me smile. I had fallen in love with the boy early on. He was young, fresh, and always striving to please me. It seems the daughter you had ordered was replaced by someone rather high-ranking in the little society. He says you were expecting him. Was it something you wanted to let us know, or should I have security escort him out? What do you mean, higher ranking? I wasn't expecting anyone beyond the standard feed. If Jason can vet them, then it's fine. I trust your judgment and his. Apparently, he is the leader for the local werewolf pack. I thought I was the leader of the local werewolf pack. Guess not. He said something about all this being arranged a couple of nights ago. None of us have anything about a meetup with the local pack before the main conference tonight. I know you will enjoy him one way or the other, but this seems a bit, I don't know, heavy-handed on his part. I can always call the catering service and have the standard package sent out. I know how you get when you don't feed after a long day. It's all good, Michael. Thanks for checking with me. I don't know anything about arrangements for munching on the local pack leader, but I know you guys will do what you feel is best. See you soon, love, and thank you again for double-checking. There are many advantages to being so much more mainstream as we were these days. Fresh and willing food was one of those perks. There were now specialty companies that catered to our specific dietary needs on many levels. For a generous fee, these companies would send out their employees to be evening snacks on the agreement that we took good care of the employee and we didn't do too much damage. Wow, that's a job with some weird benefits. I like it. Whether you preferred young and sweet, well-aged, somewhere in between, which is kind of me, maybe something with a little edge of wild to it, they had us covered. Me, personally, I had certain affections for the slight power boost one could get from a powerful shifter. Of course, feeding on the local leaders was a bit questionable, but I would figure out what was going on when we got settled, and I got briefed on any updates to our schedule and stay. Okay, and that was Chapter 1. And let me just show you again the cover. And this is called Crypt Sellers, a Christiana Aramis vampire novel by J.R. O'Brien. Hey, Melissa. Okay, and now I'm going to read from J.R. Hey, Dallas. No, Jada and Dotson's book, real quick. Thanks, Patricia. Mama Fang's the best writer I know. And there's another one of my best writers I know, and this is Jada and Dotson, a really good friend of mine. And these are some of these things she gave me, a little swag. I don't know if I use them as bookmarks, but they're not really bookmarks. They're just kind of poster cards. And this is book 1 of the Quest Risen Saga, Heliopause. And look at that cover. That's so cool. And this cover's even better. I love this one. Look at the planet in the background. The artwork is just so intricate. In this book 2 of the Quest Risen Saga, Ephemeris. And I say this every time. This is one of my favorite space operas that I've had the opportunity to read. And to compare book 1 or book 2 is like comparing Star Wars to Empire Strikes Back. Some people might like Star Wars better. Some people might like Empire Strikes Back better. Some might like Return of the Jedi better. I like Ephemeris better than Heliopause. But the difference is between like 9.5 and 10. I mean, there's really not much of a difference as far as which one I like more. They're both amazing books. You go to our website at jadaanddotson.com. That's 2 N's and Dianne, by the way, jadaanddotson.com. And you can check out her books, check out the artwork that she's had done, that she had commissioned for all the characters, as well as some background art. So it really gets it more immersive. And like I always say, this is a very immersive book. Also, she's a scientist. As a matter of fact, I talked about earlier about me rewriting my middle school madness book. She gave me 50 science facts that I can replace some of the fun facts at the bottom to make it scientifically educational. And I'm looking forward to doing that if I do a rewrite still, which I plan to. But also, you can read some of her science articles. And, you know, I'm a science geek. I'm not a scientist, but I have always loved science. So I've gone on her site and read the articles and just been floored. She's an incredible writer and a great person. She also has a Twitter account she does broadcasts on, so it's worth checking out. So Jada and Dotson is one of my favorite authors, and I'm going to go ahead and read from Ephemeris. Unfortunately, I sat on my copy. It's also been well read, as you can tell, because the pages got kind of duck-eared. So I apologize for that, as always. But here we go. Gala breathed in deeply. I'm glad it worked, she said. I can tell you who's running the shots, as you said. It's the associates. Ariad has mentioned them, Meredith replied. They gave them the orders to come to Mandira, as I understand. And that would have been specifically to help them, not you, Gala said. She watched Ariel shift uncomfortably. The associates don't do things by accident. They have plans, Gala went on, and I don't understand half of them. They work as an omnipresent group governing the galaxy as a whole, and they have representatives for various spacefaring cultures. I am one of them. As far as I know, the only being in this galaxy that holds any authority over the associates is Onioti. Who's Onioti? Asked Ariel. Onioti's a robot, by the way. And he's in book 1, too. And this, real quick, this book takes place before, during, and after book 1, which is Heliopause. So, just to kind of let you know. Gala folded her hands together and cupped her stone. Onioti found me, adrift in space, inside my stone, and he brought me onto a star city where he lives with thousands of androids, robots of every kind. Gala's eyes went out of focus as she remembered. He was the only parent I had, really. For many years I lived with him until the associates began my training to serve as a representative, and then Ariad came and took me away to train with him first. A strange look came over Meredith's face, and Ariel squirmed, her cool eyes sympathetic. Gala, I don't want to overreach here, but do you want to go? Gala blinked and clenched her stone. I don't want to remember those days. There were some good days, but others I'm not so sure about. And then the time on Biddick. Mama, I'm going to see if Dagavabi needs me, Ariel said suddenly. But before she left, she looked Gala straight in the eyes and put a hand on her shoulder. She turned and left, and Gala could see she looked troubled. Gala looked down at her hands and realized how tightly she was holding her stone. She felt so trusting of Meredith, however, that she took a chance. I had to go, she said in a shaky voice. I had to go and train. Either way, that was going to happen. But he stepped in first. I was afraid of him. It's all right, Meredith said, her voice soothing and her eyes fixed on Gala. She nodded. I'm glad I didn't go to Biddick first. That would have been so much worse. Ariad and I did not get along initially, but we were attracted to each other. And I loved him. And he loved me, but something never felt right to me about any of it. He never should have stepped in as he did, said Meredith firmly. You were naive and young, that much is clear. He was not. And yes, he did love you. I know that because I got to know him. I did not know the whole story. And while he loved you, and still does, I presume, that does not mean you are in any way beholden to him. You have to grow as your own person, away from him. Gala blinked through tears. Then she reached for Meredith, and the old woman hugged her and let her sob. Did he hurt you, dear? Meredith asked into the wild bright hair as Gala loosed her troubles. No, she said. She straightened. I suppose he hurt my feelings a bit at first, but no, he never hurt me. There was an undeniable attraction. I asked him to show me more, and I don't regret that. We enjoyed each other very much for a little while, but I can see now he wanted to keep me sheltered. Yes, that is an instinct we sometimes feel towards others we care about, Meredith said, but that does not make it healthy. I think Ariad was a lonely person, and here you came into his life. Vibrant, beautiful, brash, wild, and with a life of adventures ahead of you. All these things he was not. I can see why he was so drawn to you, and I can also see why you would be to him. I don't want to go further with him, Gala said as much to herself as Meredith. He wants me forever, and that isn't what I want. I don't know how long I'll live. I have work to do, and a purpose. And I feel that more now than ever. There's no room for me to be tethered by someone else. Meredith sighed. I'm so sorry. I know it must hurt. I think you're showing maturity here, though. Good for you. Gala rubbed her eyes and looked at Meredith's lined face. What about you? Did you love someone? Meredith grinned. Oh, yes. Ariel's father, Paul. We were friends for years before we ever decided to have a family. What happened? Gala asked delicately. He died many years ago, said Meredith. Gala gasped. I'm so sorry. Oh, dear. It's been many years. The pain has lessened, and I've got my memories. But he was my best friend. That matters so much. I miss staying up late at night talking to him. Sometimes, or just walking and talking. The simplest things, it was never grand, just comfortable. But we had a good run and a great daughter. Meredith pushed her hair behind her ears. She took Gala's hand. Don't roll out friendship, she said. You'll need it. It's a beautiful thing. And if you're very, very lucky, it can grow into more than that. I've had a blessed life. I wish you the same, dear. Thank you, Gala said, her head bowed. And thank you for this. I didn't know how much I needed it. You had a father and no mother, Meredith noted. I've got enough love for 2 girls, dear. I'm here if you need me. Gala could not speak and could not see through her tears. And that was the end of chapter 35 by, again, this is Ephemeris, Heliopause, book 1, by Jada and Dotson. What a great book this is. Okay, and now on to the last one, and this is, give me a second here. I'm going to read Into the Woods by Mama Fang, Patricia Annette, or P. Mattern is their author name, and T. Ashby. Actually, I think it's listed under L. Ashby. Let me go back to the library. And I know there's animations done for all of P. Mattern's books. I don't think I have one for this, otherwise I'd show you, but let me just show you the cover. And this is a modern horror movie, modern horror retell of Red Riding Hood, kind of. So it's a really good story. I'm really liking it so far. I have not got a Mama Fang book that I have not enjoyed. Same thing with T. Ashby and El Gathia, who co-writes with a lot of other books with her. Let's see, Location 440. Remember that. Look at that cover. See, a dark fairy tale retelling. And as you can tell, it's Little Red Riding Hood. Whoops. Let's see if I can go back to 440. There's Vampire Princess, also by Mama Fang. You just saw that briefly. I know why I'm making you watch me do this. Okey-doke. Here we go. Whoops. Let's turn this around. Okay. Dell had wanted to walk to Granny's, and really, it wasn't that far. But Sylvie noted with amusement that he kept switching the basket from hand to hand because it had gotten heavy over the mile and a half or so to Granny's cottage. Well, he had been the one insisting that they hoof it, so it was only right that he was carrying it. Along the way, they discussed their dreams a bit more. It was clear to Sylvie from the way that Dell looked at her that he was truly into her. He seemed to find everything she said amusing or clever. It was wonderful to be looked at by someone that way. She wondered if she were unconsciously doing the same thing. She certainly loved keeping company with him. He was gorgeous and kind and had a great sense of humor. On the other hand, if it turned out they were somehow related, she didn't want to think about giving birth to children with 2 heads. Oh, what are you talking about? That'd be awesome. Actually, probably wouldn't be. Sylvie was determined to question Granny some more. She was trying to figure out how to broach the subject. But she needn't have worried about it, because as soon as they had arrived and Dell had been introduced and the picnic unpacked, Granny started right in with a blunt and straightforward manner she always had. Your daddy isn't your daddy Wendell Wild, she told Dell, reaching over the corner of the small table and resting her veined hand over the cuff of his flannel shirt. I hate to be the first one to tell you, if he never did, but he wasn't. No, sir. Sylvie watched as the color seemed to drain from Wendell's face. But begging your pardon, Granny Merriweather, he managed to stutter after unfreezing, I never knew any of the father, and my folks stayed together too, unlike a lot of folks. Well, Lucas and your mother were married for a long time, Granny agreed, but your mother had you out of wedlock before she married Lucas. It was what they called a package deal. I know what a package looks like. Whoa! Hey, it's not even Unfiltered Friday even. You were only a little over 2 years old when they married, so of course he's the only father figure you ever remember. But you need to know, he wasn't your father. Dell slumped back in his chair, the sandwich he had half demolished still in his hand. I don't understand, he said, shaking his head in disbelief. Do you know who my real father was? Sylvie watched silently as Granny reached out and poured herself another glass of iced tea from the jar. She says it's iced tea. Could be something else, like absinthe. Just saying. I do, she said at last. But I'm not at all sure that you need to know that information just now. Your mother was a beautiful woman, as you know, and what happened to her was a travesty. She was so beautiful that many wanted her in all the ways that men desire women, and when she was taken, it was by force, not of her own choosing. Those were terrible days for a young woman to find herself a child. Nothing like nowadays. Young and married women who found themselves in the family way were labeled and ridiculed and considered damaged goods. Your father looked past all that. He was never one to care what other people think anyway. He was his own man, and he took both you and your mother in gladly. Sylvia looked over at Dell. He looked dumbfounded, but then his brows knit together thoughtfully. I actually do have some early memories, Granny Merriweather. That kind of line up with what you've told me. Sometimes I dream of voices from the past, and my mother and I running together, and wolves. I have dreamed of wolves since my earliest memory. An uncomfortable silence followed, in which a long look seemed to pass between Granny Merriweather and Wendell Wild. Sylvie looked from one to the other of them, wondering what it was all about. Granny finally broke the silence. Yes, I know. I know a lot of things, Wendell. Wild, just not the background of many of the founding families of Lumberjack Grove, but also the true history of the town. I just want you to promise that you will never let any harm come to Sylvie. I promise, Dell told her immediately, with an earnest tone in his voice. Of course I do, Granny Merriweather. Sylvie decided to chime in at that point. Honestly, are you all trying to talk over my head or something? I feel like you're talking in some kind of code. She gave them both a suspicious look. Anyone care to clarify? Granny reached over to pat her on the hand. Never you mind, Sylvie, she assured her. I just want to make sure that you are valued and protected at all times, and Wendell has granted me that assurance. Dell turned the chat to the yield forecast for the foresting season and said if it was good enough for the company, there might be bonuses all around. Sylvie's attention drifted for a moment, and she turned her head to catch a glimpse of something furry and gray standing at the top of a knoll. Furry and gray, wow. Beyond the fencing surrounding the cottage. It was large and seemed strangely to be looking back at her. She was so intrigued that she got up out of her chair and went to the window to get a better look, but it had disappeared from view. What is it, Sylvie? Yes, what is it, child? Granny said, her voice tinged with concern. I thought I saw something, Sylvie answered. It was gray and had a shaggy coat. Maybe a wild dog or a wolf or something. Well, twere a wolf, it wouldn't be a surprise, Granny returned. There are a lot of those creatures in this mountainous area. Always have been, always will be, I reckon. Okay, I do got to wrap this up. Thanks, Mom, for letting me read from that. I might do another live read later. We'll see. Tomorrow, Tutter has tennis and swim class, so the live read may not happen tomorrow, but we'll see if I can. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. Again, I am going to try and upload this to YouTube manually if I can. I don't know if I can, but I will try. Thank you guys for tuning in, and if you're an author and want me to read from your book, just let me know. I will be glad to do it. Anyways, take care of yourself. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day. Bye-bye.